Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into something truly fascinating. We're going to be exploring Advaita Vedanta. But right off the bat, I want you to just drop any preconceived notions you might have, because we aren't going to look at this as a religion. Instead, we're going to examine it as a rigorous, ancient science of the mind. I mean, its entire design is meant to quite literally de-hypnotize us from our everyday suffering. So we're going on a bit of a progressive de-hypnosis journey today. It's a bold claim, I know, but as we'll see, the structure of logic behind it is absolutely brilliant.
All right, let's just quickly map out where we're headed today. We'll start with the ultimate paradox, then move on to subject versus object, followed by waking from the dream. After that, we'll tackle the tricky question of who actually gains knowledge. And finally, we'll ground all of this in Section 5, freedom in everyday life.
But before we really get into it, I want to throw a question right back at you. What does it actually mean to know yourself? Think about it. If someone asked you who you are, you'd probably list off your job, your personality traits, or, your personal history. But is that really you? Or is that just a story you've collected over the years? This question really frames the core philosophical mystery of our entire journey today.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the ultimate paradox.
Usually when people say self-knowledge, we're thinking about relative stuff, like what's my Myers-Briggs type, what's my childhood history, or what are my psychological patterns? Well, Vedanta says these are just objects. I mean, sure, they're subtle objects, but they're still just objects. True self-knowledge, or Ātmā-Jñānam, is a whole different ballgame. This is the knowledge of your own true nature. Interestingly enough, the Sanskrit word Upanishad literally translates to that which is nearest. The self is closer to you than your own body or your own mind, and yet it somehow remains this great unknown. So to really grasp this, we need to define a crucial term, Brahman. In Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is pure, attributeless, all-pervasive consciousness. The texts describe it as sat-cit-ānanda, meaning existence, consciousness, and bliss. It's limitless, it's immortal, it's changeless. And here is the ultimate paradox. Brahman isn't some distant deity up in the clouds. It is the very reality of who you are. It is literally the nearest thing to you. But because it is so incredibly close, it can't just be objectified or studied under a microscope. And that transitions us perfectly into Section 2, subject versus object. All right, think about how we normally learn things. To know something, we need a pramana, a means of knowledge. If you want to see the coffee mug on your desk, you need your eyes, right? There's always this triple distinction. You have the knower, the means of knowledge, and the object being known. But this standard structure completely breaks down when it comes to self-knowledge. Why? Because the self is not an object. The self is the ultimate subject. It's the knower itself. This actually brings up one of my absolute favorite analogies. The eye cannot see itself. Your eyes can see the room around you right now. They can see the colors and the light, but they cannot look back and see themselves without a mirror. In the exact same way, the self cannot be seen or studied as an object because you are the seer. The knower can never, ever become the known. There's this fantastic quote from Swami Dayananda that really hits the nail on the head. He says, "I am is experienced all the time. The problem is not that you lack experience of yourself, you are the experience." This is huge. You are never completely ignorant of yourself. You always know I am. Imagine a super wealthy person who falls asleep and dreams that they're a beggar. Within that dream, they aren't totally ignorant. They know they exist, they know they're experiencing something, but they're suffering from this partial ignorance. They've temporarily mistaken their true limitless nature for something limited and poor. So how do we actually fix this? That brings us to Section 3, waking from the dream. Now, this framework is just mind-blowing because it totally busts some of the biggest spiritual myths out there. For instance, self-knowledge is not some fleeting mystical experience. Experiences come and go, right? But the self is the constant witness to all of it. It's also not a thoughtless state. I mean, simply removing thoughts just makes you ignorant without thoughts. It's not something you achieve or a technique you practice. Real knowledge simply negates a mistaken notion. Think of a stick placed in water. It looks bent. Your eyes deceive you. But when you pull it out, you see the truth. That direct knowledge negates the illusion. You didn't fix the stick, you literally just removed the ignorance. Since we can't just use our eyes or basic logic to see the self, Vedanta steps in as that mirror we talked about. And it works in 2 stages. Stage 1 is Parokṣa-Jñāna, which basically means indirect knowledge. This is gaining knowledge about the self. It's kind of like studying a map of a country you've never visited.
You trust the map, you understand the geography, but there's still a clear gap between you and the destination. You're the student over here, and Brahman is this abstract concept over there. But you don't just stop at the map. That map study eventually builds up to stage 2, Aparokṣa-Jñāna, or direct knowledge. This is where that gap totally collapses. It results in this profound cognition, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And listen, this isn't a magical new experience or some dramatic flash of lightning. It is simply the sudden removal of the veil. It is exactly like waking up from a dream. You don't have to become the waker. You just recognize what you already were the entire time. So if you take away one thing from this, let it be this. Realizing you are limitless is fundamentally a deconditioning process. It's literally a de-hypnosis program. For decades, you have hypnotized yourself into thinking, I am this limited body, I am inadequate, I am mortal. Self-knowledge doesn't add a single thing to you. It just systematically strips away the hypnosis until only the truth remains. Which smoothly transitions us into section 4, who actually gains knowledge. Now, I gotta be honest with you here. The sources are super clear that this is not some quick weekend workshop. There are rigorous qualifications involved. You need things like viveka, which is the ability to discriminate truth from illusion, and vairagya, which is cultivating a real dispassion toward constantly chasing objects for happiness. But perhaps the hardest truth to swallow is the absolute need for a healthy emotional life. Self-knowledge actively attacks the ego. And let's face it, our egos absolutely hate being told they aren't the center of the universe. If you have deep-seated trauma, crippling anxiety, or a massive inferiority complex, this knowledge just cannot take root. You can't have one half of your mind saying, I am limitless, while the other half secretly believes I am worthless. It really demands a qualified teacher and deep, consistent study over time. And that leads us right into the ultimate trick question. Who is actually doing the learning here? Is Brahman gaining knowledge? Well, no, pure consciousness is changeless and already totally free. Is the physical brain learning? No, the subtle body is essentially inert. The answer is actually the ego itself, the reflected consciousness. The ego is the one that has the thought, I am Brahman. Think of your reflection in a mirror. The reflection isn't actually you, but it points back to you. When the ego finally understands it's just a reflection, it doesn't become the original consciousness. Its mistaken, separate identity just simply dissolves. Let's bring all this lofty philosophy down to earth in our final section, Section 5, Freedom in Everyday Life. So, what is the actual practical payoff for you sitting here right now? It's moksha, absolute freedom. And it happens by destroying the root cause of all sorrow, which is self-ignorance. The ancient sources use this beautiful analogy of a tree. Self-knowledge literally cuts the root of the tree of samsara, the whole cycle of suffering. Now, even if the trunk and the branches, your past habits and emotional tendencies, remain visible for a little while, the tree is fundamentally dead. It will never grow again. You realize I am the whole, and suddenly, that frantic, exhausting search for completion just stops. I absolutely love this insight from Swami Paramarthananda. He points out, when I say I am a man, I have already identified with the body. The moment that happens, immortality cannot be claimed. But if I say I am and stop, immortality that is my nature already can be claimed. It illustrates so perfectly how quickly, with just one extra word, we limit ourselves. Simply resting in pure I am reclaims your natural freedom. Now, practically speaking, Advaita Vedanta isn't telling you to just ignore your everyday human struggles. Not at all. If you're dealing with anxiety or emotional pain, here is the actionable approach. First, use inquiry. Ask yourself, what story am I believing right now to feel this discomfort? Next, recognize the pattern. See that your conditioned beliefs are just stories. They aren't ultimate reality. And finally, work through your psychology. You really have to clean up those unhealthy self-stories so the knowledge can actually land. Always remember, the self is not in the story is in the self. You are the vast open awareness in which all the little daily dramas appear, play out, and eventually dissolve. And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've seen that you really don't need to acquire anything that new. You don't need to chase some fleeting mystical experience, and you don't even need to change who you fundamentally are. You just need to drop the hypnosis. So, I'll leave you with this. Are you ready to wake up? Hold that bent stick out of the water and recognize the limitless awareness that you already are? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep questioning, keep inquiring, and I'll see you next time.